how did you prepare for the interview a little, and like especially the case study, because I think that's a very frightening part of consulting interviews. So I just want to hear a little bit about that. Like what resources did you use in school maybe, or like how did you prepare yourself?
I had never done a case study before my case study interview. That was my first, because as I said, I wasn't very focused on consulting.
Yeah.
So when they gave me the interview, I was like, I didn't really know what to expect. That was also a misconception. I thought it would be a lot more of like, who are you? How are you as a person? What is your past experience? And
Yeah.
asked me that for like 2 minutes, and then they were like, we study, and I was like, what is this? So definitely, that was something that I wasn't familiar with. But how I took it is, I didn't see it as I'm being interviewed. I also saw it as I also want to know if I want to be part of this company. And I think the energy that you transmit is also different. I didn't feel like frightened because they were interviewing me. I was like, well, I want to see, if this place is also for me.
Yeah.
And so I also asked questions. And, I didn't wait to the part where they're like, do you have any questions? If I had a question in the middle, I see an interview more as a conversation, right? So when I had a question, I would say, oh, what about you? Or what do you think about this? And I think that for me, it's more of an interaction, more of a both ways. And so in terms of specifically the case study, I would say that some people focus a lot on doing tons of case studies. And in my personal humble opinion, that doesn't necessarily help that much. I think that if you look at hundreds of cases, you probably will find a pattern between all of them.
Yep.
But I would say that what a case study is trying to look at is, are you able to do some basic math? I don't think they have like really, really hard math. Are you able to do some basic calculations? But what it's trying to get at is your thought process.
Yeah.
So I would say the most important thing, no matter if you've done 100 cases or none, is be able to explain what you're thinking. So if they ask you a question, don't just sit quiet thinking about it. Think out loud. Say what you're thinking, where you're going through, and sometimes they'll guide you. They'll be like, oh, yeah, but what about this? But if you're not saying anything, it's really hard to be able to get that. And I think that when you have a group case interview, maybe it's easier because there's someone else talking. But when it's a one-on-one, sometimes it's more intimidating. So I would say just explain what you're thinking, even with the math part, right? If they ask you a math question, just tell them where you're going. Tell them, okay, so I think to solve this, I would be able to do this. So now I'm dividing this by this, or I'm multiplying, whatever you're doing. I would say that being very open about what you're doing. And I made a mistake. I made a math mistake in my first interview. But I guess that because I was explaining it, the part was like, oh, are you sure about that? And as I said that, I was like, oh, let me see. And then I realized, oh, no, I did this wrong. And I said, oh, and I explained that. Oh, no, now that you say that, I'm like looking back and I think this is, and I explained it. And so I would say that even if you make a mistake in the middle of the interview, don't be scared. Don't think I lost all my chances. Continue and recognize the mistake. Because I feel like that's a very big thing, not just for consulting, but for life. Being someone who is able to say, I made a mistake. Don't try to cover it up. Be realistic. Yes, I did this wrong. You're right. Thank you. Now I realize why it's like this. Because I think that, especially in consulting, when they're hiring you, they're aware that you won't know everything, and they're willing to teach you. So I think being self-aware is very important for the interview.